I was thinking about the nature of suffering, and when we think about suffering, like people that love God end up going through a period of suffering. Think about the book of Job. It's a perfect place to go. Job chapter 1. And but we also need to understand that suffering can be produced by Satan at the permission of God to test the loyalty of a Christian, to test their faithfulness to God. And then also, suffering can come from, as people say, from just the result of our own poor choices. Okay, so I think probably the best example of that would be Proverbs 10, verse 4. Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. Simple enough. If you have a business and you're lazy about marketing your business, don't be surprised that you don't have any customers to produce wealth for you. All right. So you have to, if you have a business, you have to market and advertise that business in order to attract customers and produce money. You're going to go poor if you don't market and advertise yourself as a business owner, an entrepreneur. Doesn't matter how small, doesn't matter how great. You better advertise that business, or no customers are going to see you, and you're going to get in trouble. So there are people that become poor because they're lazy, and it's the result of their own bad choices. And of course, if all suffering were that simple, we could easily recover from them by just reversing our choice and then repairing the suffering through the reversal of the choice. Once we learn the lesson of the bad choice, we can just go right back to it most of the time and repair it. Unless, of course, that choice was a crime and you end up in jail. There's nothing much you can do about that. But if suffering is coming from not necessarily the result of our choices, but coming from a circumstance out of our control, that is something that we have to conclude is in God's hands alone. It might even be caused by the devil at the permission of God, like in Job chapter 1, especially if it happens the way it does in Job chapter 1. What you have in Job chapter 1, especially verses 12 to 19, is Satan attacking Job invisibly at the permission of God to test his faithfulness to God. Satan invisibly attacks Job behind the scenes, manifesting sufferings for him in the physical world around him. And so as a result of this, it's a layered effect. There are 4 or 5 major sufferings that happen to him all at the same time. Okay? That's how you know it's supernaturally originated, and it's not coming from just the result of your, quote, own poor choices to be lazy at your job, or make a mistake at your job, or you forgot to advertise for your business. Okay? There are sufferings that come as a result of supernatural forces, and you'll know what it looks like when 3 or 4 really big things happen to you at the same time, and you're thinking to yourself, where in the world is all of this coming from? It's all happening at the same time, one thing after another. Okay, that's when it's probably coming from a demonic source. But we have to also realize that we're not alone in this, even if we draw the conclusion that a demonically, caused suffering, or series of sufferings rather, because it's never just going to be one, that a demonically caused series of sufferings is happening. We're not alone in this. It's not just us versus the devil. God is watching us, okay, and he's ready to help us if we cry out to him and pray. And And we can get through this because God is ultimately testing our loyalty and our faithfulness to Him. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. Job 1:12-19. The Lord said to Satan, "Very well then, everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger." Then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. One day when Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing nearby, and the Sabaeans attacked and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." Okay, so the first suffering was a party was crashed by the bad news that some raiders had come through, stolen his livestock, and killed his shepherds. That was the first suffering that came. It was a double whammy, happened in one moment. Verse 16, while he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, "The fire of God fell from the heavens and burned up the sheep and the servants, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." Okay, so then a lightning bolt came. That's what they called the fire of God fell from the heavens. A lightning bolt came because Satan did it. Satan can do that. A lightning bolt came from the sky and burned up the sheep and the shepherds. So more livestock was killed, this time by a lightning bolt. Verse 17, while he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, "The Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." So then another group of raiders came from a different country and stole all of his camels and killed the shepherds of that livestock. So that was the third calamity. Then the fourth thing happened. Verse 18, while he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, "Your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are dead, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." So now the party that was going on with Job's family, a mighty wind came, something like a tornado or something like that, came in from the desert and hit the house, and everybody died. Okay, and so these 4 things happened to Job within minutes of one another. Within minutes of one another. Satan caused that. Okay, it was supernatural, and it was 4 things at once. Now, this stuff can happen. Stuff like this, weird, bizarre stuff like this can happen to people. It can. It's in the Bible. If it's never happened to you, okay. But I'm telling you, weird things, weird, bizarre series of unfortunate events can just come upon people without any planning, just like a surprise, because God said, gave permission to the devil to attack them from multiple angles. And the reason for all of this is to test the loyalty and faithfulness of the servant of God, to see if they're going to stay faithful to God even when all the blessings are removed. The same concept continues in the New Testament. In James 1:11-13, James 1:11-13, the sun rises with scorching heat and withers the plant. Its blossoms fall, and its beauty is destroyed. In the same way, the rich will fade away even while they go about their business. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. When tempted, no one should say, "God is tempting me," for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. Okay, so temptation is seduction into sin. That doesn't come from God. Okay, that comes from the devil, and it comes from our own flesh. But business failure, or that sort of thing, that economic sort of, most of Job's sufferings were economic. Some of them were social, because his servants, he probably had friendships with all of them. They were employees, but he probably had friendships with his employees. So it was an economic and it was a social hardship. And then, of course, the last one was a social hardship entirely because his family, his kids were killed by a tornado. So, there you have the classification of the types of sufferings that Satan attacks. He attacks your money, and he attacks your friends and family. Those three things: money, friends, and family. He'll attack those three things, and they'll all come at once. This stuff is out of your control. This is not the result of poor choices, from being lazy or something, or from committing a crime. These are just events that happen. Satan was able to stir up the thoughts of the Sabaeans in verse 15. Satan was able to send a lightning bolt in verse 16. Satan was able to stir up the thoughts of the Chaldeans in verse 17. And Satan was able to send a mighty wind, probably a tornado, in verse 19. So Satan is able to stir up evil thoughts in people that don't live for God. Satan is able to send natural disasters, lightning bolts and tornadoes. And so that becomes then the mechanism of the demonic attack, at least in this case. Other forms of sufferings can come, cancerous tumors and things like this. All things that are can be supernaturally originated. So this is the kind of stuff that doesn't come from poor choices. It's just stuff that just happens to you. Okay. Verse 12, James 1:12, blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, having stood the test. That person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. Well, there you go. You're being tested. It's a trial. It's a test. You have to persevere under it in order to receive the crown of life and go to heaven. It's part of Pilgrim's Progress. It's not an easy idea of eternal security. Don't worry about that. Don't doubt your salvation. You'll persevere. Don't worry about it. You're going to make it. No. It's Arminian. No, you are going through a test, so persevere if you want to make it to heaven. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, having stood the test. That person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. James 1:12. So you have to view it as the proper way. This is a test of your faithfulness and loyalty to God. Are you going to turn your back on him during this? Are you going to turn to sinful pleasure as a way of escaping from your problem? You better not, because if you do, once it's over, the problem's still going to be there. So what good is that going to do? It bring you to hell if you die in it. So we have to persevere. We need to not give in to sin. We need to not break the 10 Commandments as some sort of an escape from our problems when these things go the direction that they're supposed to go. We can try to respond to them. But it's these sorts of things are usually the things that you can't respond to. It's out of your power to respond to it. Maybe you'll be able to respond to it in the future, but you can't respond to it fully in the present because it's out of your control. It's out of your control. So if this suffering is financial in nature, it might very well be that you can conquer it and gain victory over it in the future, and you can make plans for that, right? But there's going to be a period of time in the present where you have to go through it because there's no other way to gain victory and respond over it. You're getting temporarily conquered by the experience. And you have to learn how to persevere under it as a trial. And so that's not the result of poor choices. That's a situation and a circumstance of unfortunate events that all come and hit you at the same time. They might not happen in the same hour like it did with, or maybe even 15-minute time period, or maybe even less than that. I mean, the way Job 1:12-19 reads makes it sound like all of that happened in 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. But I think, at least in my life, I've had some Job experiences where, I had like 4 things happen, like 3 or 4 appliances break, and it took about a week. It just all happened at the same time. Mixed together with job loss, mixed together with death in the family, mixed together with loss of friends and family. So stuff that it's not the result of poor choices. This is not suffering that's created by laziness and idle hands in Proverbs 10:4. This is different. It's more complex. It's a more robust experience, and it does not come from yourself. It comes from outside of yourself. And then on top of that, there's nothing you can do about it. You have to just wait until it's over and make plans for a better day. So that's what a trial is. It's where the suffering is designed to produce perseverance in you.